Hello, everybody, and we are back on this beautiful Wednesday, Talking Trees Live with Davey Tree. I am your host, Katie Dubow, and today my guest is Tim Jackson out of San Antonio, Texas. Hey, Tim.
Good afternoon. How are y'all doing?
I'm great. I know. I was going to say, or should I say howdy? I don't know. How do you guys greet each other in San Antonio?
Pretty much just hello.
Oh, that's no fun. How would zombies greet each other? We are here today. Yes, exactly. We are here today to talk about a really fun topic, zombie trees. So
Right.
we're going to learn what zombie trees are, how you can stop them, and maybe how you can spot them. So that's a really little fun Halloween episode that we have for you today. So, we already have a shout out from Texas. Megan's from Texas. She's tuning in from Austin. Megan,
Awesome.
do you say hello as well, or do you have something more fun to say in Texan? Yeah. So, if you guys have any questions about trees in general or a sick tree, now's your chance to ask the expert live. That's what we're here for, to get your burning questions answered. The zombie tree topic is really fun, but we want to hear from you guys out there. So we're already having people telling us where they're tuning in from. You can start by that, by telling us where you're tuning in from. And we'll get started. So let me introduce Tim. Tim and I were just chatting beforehand and talking about his long career as an arborist. He said more than 30 years. When you know the person's like 33, it's been a long, nice career as an arborist. You started in Ohio?
Yeah, I did.
And now you're in Texas.
I am. This may be where I finish up, I think. I love Texas.
Oh, that's
fall color. You've got great fall color behind you.
Oh my gosh, I had to stand here in this spot because it is just, I'm here in Pennsylvania, southeastern Pennsylvania, and it's the season. We have gorgeous color this year. I think it was because we had such a perfect spring and summer. It was the perfect amount of rain, didn't get too hot. It was really just a perfect season. So I had to have this beautiful backdrop for everyone who might not get that fall color. What do you get in San Antonio?
Well, it's behind me. It's green and then brown. So not a lot in between.
Yeah, you can't complain about that, though. All right, well, let's jump in and get talking about zombies. Or I like yours better. My girls are 3 and 6, and we're really into watching the movie Hocus Pocus, if you can remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Movie with Bette Midler. Good one, a classic Halloween movie, but I've kind of been watching and looking at Billy the zombie thinking, oh, is that what one of my trees is? It's the living dead. So I know this is kind of a fun, kitschy topic. So when we say zombie trees, we're just talking about a sick tree, right? What do we mean?
Well, I think, when I was thinking of the concept being around Halloween, zombie trees, to me, it's just a tree that is standing there and doesn't know it's dead yet. And there's an awful lot of them standing there with issues, and maybe they're waiting to fall and do some real damage. And it's kind of like the zombies wandering around before they cause a problem for someone.
That's right. I love that. They don't know they're dead yet. And I guess that's the concept of a zombie. They don't know they're dead. But your tree could have some kind of issue. What could it be that would be causing the tree to not know that it is yet dead?
Well, some of the real tells with trees are you'll have tip decline, or the tops of the trees will start to fade a bit, and you lose the leaves prematurely in that part of the tree. And you think, okay, when it's declining from the top, you've almost invariably have a root issue, which means the whole tree could come over. It may have a disease or some sort of decay column or a problem within the tree that's causing that decline. And invariably it's in the roots. And that's when you start taking information from the tree, asking it questions and listening to its answers in one way or another, and figuring out what is really going wrong with it, if in fact it is a tree that might become a hazard or a zombie.
Yes. So when you say a root issue, and so interesting to me that you can identify that from the top of a tree, the furthest part away from, that's where the new growth happens. Is that why?
Right. And it's from the roots. So let me do this thing. Val Rao, this great instructor, told us before. Let me see here. Got your roots and your shoots. Your roots start declining, your shoots start declining, and they're supposed to be in balance. So these grow and these grow. So when you start losing it from the top down, it's probably in the ground where you should be looking.
Interesting. And is there a way that the homeowner can, besides looking at the tips or the crown of the tree, are there other things that homeowners can do to identify?
Another great tell, if it's not really going from the top down and one of those trees that doesn't know it's dead, it looks perfectly healthy, you might want to check the base of the tree, because that's where most of your other problems start showing up. And you'd have fungus on the base, shelf fungus coming out of the trunks, buttress flares that are just decayed, and cavities, and lots of insect activity, looking for borers and those sorts of things. There are just dozens of different things to look for, but specifically the tops, and then the root crown of the tree, and that's the part where it swells and you get this root flare where the soil meets the trunk.
And one of my favorite topics is mulching. So if we are not able to see that root crown of our tree, it's probably because you haven't properly mulched your tree, right?
Right. You could have the volcano mulch where they just come down the trunk. We want to pull that back and expose the root flare. You can have mulch beyond the root flare, but don't have it up on the root flare.
Yes. One thing I don't like, I hate more than zombies, is volcano mulching.
Right.
So, all right. So we've talked about how to identify it, but let's take it back a little bit more and talk about why a tree could become a zombie. What are some reasons that trees become sick?
Well, there's a lot of them. Drought is one. We've had a lot of drought in South Texas, and you get just year after year of successive root decline, which then you get the tip decline. We've also had a number of different diseases that are causing decline in trees, and oak wilt not the least of which, but certainly storms blowing through. We've had a lot of high winds. We get tornadoes occasionally here and north of here, and we get just the occasional tropical storm will blow through and just really hit the trees hard, and you look at it and it looks fine, but it could have developed some cracks. The tree may have weathered the storm in the short run, but there may be an awful lot of things wrong in the canopy that you just can't see from the ground.
So if perhaps you see some of that dieback at the top, and you know that in your region you had either drought, or you live in a hurricane belt or a tornado belt, and a big storm has come through, it's possible that you might not see that damage, Tim, is what you're saying, until months, or could you see it years later? How long could a zombie be living in your yard?
It could be even years later. I've seen some trees standing that should not be standing, and they're no rhyme or reason to it. But trees are fighters, so some trees fight harder than others to keep their presence.
Are there some trees that are more susceptible to this, or could any tree become a zombie?
Frankly, it could be any tree, but we always think of the softer wooded trees, the weaker wooded trees like cottonwoods, some species of elm that generate poor branch attachment. Pecan trees drop limbs in South Texas all the time. So we have those. Certain pine species as well can suddenly become zombie trees. So there's just really any species could have a problem associated with storms or disease.
And how can somebody find out? I think a lot of people, what I think is so interesting is they don't know that they are even suffering from a drought. If you're not a gardener, you know, how do we know that we're suffering from a drought? Or it's just, you know, you have to ask your arborist.
Well, it's always good to have an arborist, somebody qualified to come out and check it out. But normally what we look for is just foliar discolorations. Not like what you have behind you, which is beautiful, but out of season, asynchronous defoliation, scorch on the leaf margins. You can just see drought happening in a lot of different ways, and usually it's with leaf color and dropping of leaves.
Got it. So just to recap, you could have a zombie in your yard, and it could be from a number of things. Tim's saying it could be as simple as drought, and you can spot that by some of the browning on the leaves. It could be from a storm. We just posted a link about did lightning hit one of your trees? There's a lot of reasons why your tree could be dying from the inside out, but not yet showing those symptoms. You mentioned the symptoms, Tim, as maybe the crown dieback, some fungus on the trees. Certainly if you have an open cavity, right, or something on your tree that you can see to the inside, that's a little easier to spot that zombie. Yeah,
those are the haunted trees. People will say, this is my Halloween tree because it's got big, cavities in it and knot holes and things and in them and habitat. And a lot of times those trees are stable enough, but it really just depends on the species, the location, where the targets are, and what the real stability is.
Interesting. I see a lot of times on those trees that people put the eyes and like they make a face out of their tree. Have you ever seen that? Oh, he's frozen for a minute. Did you catch that, Tim?
Yes, I have. I caught some of that. It sounded like they made a face out of a tree. So I have seen faces of trees, yes.
But that's not good, right? If they're hammering something into the tree, I know there's a little bit of a spin-off. Speaking of that, though, I've always wondered about that,
You
those
know,
eyes on the trees.
a nail or two, a little tack here or there is probably not going to hurt a mature tree. But I've seen people carve things into trees, and I'd rather that never happens.
I know, me too. That's I don't think we have any people of the age who are watching this show who would go out and carve at a tree. But if you are and thinking about it, don't do it.
Don't do it.
All right, well then we talked about the symptoms, we talked about how a tree can get sick, but now here's the solution. How do we turn a zombie back into not the Walking Dead, the living? Is it possible? Can these trees be saved?
Often they can. If they can't be saved, if we can't mitigate some of the issues, then certainly it's going to be a hazard tree and it will be just slated for removal. But most of the time, we can come declare what's wrong with the tree, diagnose it, and then prescribe deep root fertilization. A lot of times, just getting the roots growing faster will be enough to generate that growth above ground that we need. And also, just pruning in general. You've got really good pruning practices where we can take weight out of the heavy ends of trees, alleviate some of that wind sail effect by thinning the tree, remove dead wood, because dead wood is dead weight, and we just don't need extra loads in these trees, extra wind resistance. So anywhere we can really change a little bit of how the tree has grown so we can make it match its environment a little better, so it can live better in the house, near the house, over the drive, near power lines, all those things, and that's the kind of pruning that we should do.
And now is a good time. I mean, I know you're in Texas, I'm in Pennsylvania, but you know, is still a good time to prune?
Now is still a good time to prune. Most species are really primed for pruning in fall and through the winter, and a lot of things really ought to be done before the spring growth period happens. So I just looked at a tree today where it was very heavy. It's a red oak. It's beginning to lose its leaves, so it won't get heavier going forward. It'll get lighter. But next spring, it's going to be a problem. So I'd rather get ahead of it now, take some weight out in deadwood before it's perhaps too late and it becomes a zombie.
Yes. So you can protect your trees. Not only so what Tim's saying is you can save some of your trees potentially if they are zombies, but the thing we want to do here is prevent zombies from happening in the first place. So
Right.
So some proactive pruning, having an arborist come out and check your tree, check the roots. I mean, I don't know what I'm looking for. A lot of people don't know that they've improperly mulched. A lot of people don't know what they're looking for. You could see a pest on your tree and have no idea if it's invasive or if it's beneficial, right?
Right,
So
exactly.
So what are some of the pests? You know, I know that one of the signs, we have spotted lanternfly here in Pennsylvania, huge problem. Still, I just saw one on my porch today.
Okay.
And I know emerald ash borer is a big problem here too. And woodpeckers are a big sign that you might have that pest inside your tree. So
Right.
could be, if there's some pests, it could be killing your tree from the inside out, right?
It could be, and woodpeckers are smart. They're not going to take the most sound, healthy part of a tree. They're going to find a hollow spot where there might be some insect activity behind it. So where the woodpeckers are, you've probably got an internal decay column that you're not aware of.
Yeah, so if you hear, I mean, I love woodpeckers. They're so fun to watch, but not on your tree. That might be a sign of a problem. So we got a couple questions. Kim, thank you for your questions. If you guys have any questions about zombie trees, throw them in. Kim is asking if river birch are susceptible to zombieism. She can't seem to keep hers healthy in the Midwest.
Very common for borers. And that's a tree that gets stressed. So there's a few micronutrients that river birch like to have that often aren't present. So if you're going to replant, if you've lost some already, but you really want river birch, then get an arborist out there and kind of work through what it's going to take to keep that tree alive long term. It may include some borer treatments because those commonly die from borers. And once the borers get there, you start with a tree that's healthy. It's perfect when you plant it. A few months go by and it starts browning a little. The tree becomes stressed. That's what invites the borers because they smell it and they attack. But once the borers come, you're probably going to lose that tree.
So borers are like a pre-zombie sign because your tree is already stressed. A lot of times, like you talked about woodpeckers, these pests are looking for stressed trees. So that the same things that create that sick tree, the drought, you know, flooding, I've even heard excess water. I know drought is the opposite, but excess water can actually really damage a tree and kind of suffocate a roots. the roots, can it?
Absolutely. And the symptom, unfortunately, is almost the same. You get browning from the top, decline from the top down, and flooding and just continuous water, whether it's natural flooding or down here we have a lot of irrigation systems. Well, occasionally a valve gets held open and it floods an area. Client goes on vacation for a week, comes home, and their whole front yard is flooded where their giant tree is, and the tree's suddenly browning out. So that kind of flooding will bring fungus. Phytophthora is one that's pretty common for a tree that remains wet, that's not used to being sitting in a wet area. So we've got that issue to contend with.
So paying attention and looking up. One of the wonderful benefits, I think, of being home is people paying more attention to their trees. So
True.
I think it's been
Oh,
great,
yeah.
right?
It has. It unfortunately, yes, that has been one of the upsides, I guess. So you got to look for the silver lining, and that's been a good one. Is a lot more people are more engaged with their landscape and their trees and just being outside.
Yeah, I love that part of it. Especially this time of year, it's so beautiful. So why not get out or it's hot. You said it's like 80 degrees there today, right?
Right now it's still hot. Yeah.
Yeah. We got another question from Denny. Thanks for your question, Denny. Oh, it just disappeared. Hold on, let me scroll up. So what are your thoughts? So we're talking about fertilizing, and you suggested deep root fertilization as one of the ways to maybe potentially save your tree. Denny's talking about adding mycorrhizae to deep root fertilization, putting that in your fertilizer. Is that something that's already included in the Davey fertilizers?
It's a supplement to fertilizer, and it really is a good one. We use it a lot of times with trees that are under more stress. It really just depends on how the tree presents, and if we're really worried about it declining and we've got to really add a little oomph, then mycor is a good thing to add to it.
Great question, Denny. I wonder, Denny, while you're asking, if you have experience with mycorrhizae, or because a lot of people don't even know that word. So I'm curious about that. And if you're interested in more information about soil, we will be back on November 4th with this Talking Trees for a whole topic on soil, Denny. So make sure you put that on your calendar.
Awesome.
I know, that's exciting. So what other questions do you guys have about zombie trees? I know that I see some people, not me, toilet papering their trees to make, oh, that's a mummy. That's not a zombie. That's a mummy, right?
I guess we can have mummy trees this kind of year.
Yeah, you could have any of the above. But I think you've answered so many questions for people about this fun topic. We don't want to get attacked by zombies. We want to save our trees. We want to protect our trees. And, the point is, any way that we can get people to talk about their trees is good for us. And we're so glad that you guys all have joined us and participated today. And Denny's saying he makes his own compost tea, which is very exciting.
Wonderful. Good stuff. It acidifies the soil, and that's a good thing too.
Yeah, that is great, Danny. Good for you. So, Tim, we appreciate all of your insight today on zombie trees and how to identify a zombie tree, we already identified them, what trees could be susceptible, which is all of them, and then how to save your tree. Some trees we know can't be saved, and your arborist will be able to tell you that, but then many trees can. And I think the bottom line, Tim, is that we want people to protect their trees before they become zombies, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Action is better than reaction.
Yes. And I like Jen's joke. So with zombie trees, is their bark worse than their bite?
Oh.
Good one, Jen. I always like a good
no.
I always like a good tree joke when I can. So anyway, like I said, we will be back on November 4th with Chris Fields Johnson to talk about soil and any soil questions that you might have, because that's always a really hot topic. No pun intended, compost. I guess that doesn't really work. And we'll be here at 3 p.m. Eastern. We'd love to see you back, but we're going to let Tim go for now, and we really appreciate all of your information and your insight, and go enjoy that 80-degree day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.